Hi, I first want to say I appreciate everybody's interest in feral swine and participating in this conference. My understanding is that over 3,000 people have registered for this virtual conference. I also want to thank the Wild Pig Task Force for giving me the opportunity to talk about USDA's National Feral Swine Program. But before I start, I want to throw another thank you in there, and that's to everybody that's addressing feral swine issues. That's whether you're doing direct control in the field, outreach, research, whatever it is. This is a big problem. Feral swine are a scourge to the nation, and it's going to take everybody working together to resolve this issue. So I'm Dale Nolte. I'm the program manager for the National Feral Swine Program. And I just want to go through a few points about the program. First is, why do we care? Why did USDA get involved with feral swine? And the answer is straightforward. It's the problems they cause. Feral swine early on were estimated to cause maybe at $1.5 billion in damages every year. But we have reason to believe now, after collecting more data and doing some research, that those numbers probably exceed 2 to 2.5 billion a year. They damage every sector. They're kind of a unique species in that sense. And I don't know of a crop they don't damage. They carry diseases. They're a direct threat to humans. They have indirect threats by carrying zoonotic diseases. They impact infrastructures. They damage landscape. Pretty much across the board, if you have feral swine, you're going to have damages. To solve those damages or to reduce damages, that's why USDA got involved with feral swine. A little background, when I talk about feral swine, it really represents wild pigs, feral hogs, wild boars, pretty much any animal, swine that's out there that is not being controlled by a human. If domestic pigs get released, and they establish, likely they'll start calling damages, and we will consider those feral swine. A little more background, feral swine have been here for a long time. We believe they were first introduced in the early 1500s. Basically, Spanish explorers would release them as they were, moving across the continent because they knew they were likely to survive and there'd be a food source when they came back. And one of the reasons they're such a highly effective invasive species is they're generalist. They can live almost everywhere. They're omnivorous, meaning they can eat anything. They're very opportunistic. They'll take advantages of most situations. They're also highly intelligent and their reproduction rates are very high. And being opportunistic, they adapt very well to other environments. Feral swine have been around the country for a long time, but for some reason, we believe in the late 70s, early 80s, the population started expanding and densities became more dense. These maps give you some idea of the population changes from the 80s until within a few years ago. But what's not reflected here is the densities. This map is showing counties where they're now at that they weren't several decades ago. But the densities of feral swine where they exist has also become much greater. How are they spreading? We have reason to believe they're probably spreading at 55 to 75 miles an hour in the back of pickup trucks. They show up in isolated areas that there's really no way they would have got there through natural dispersion. So we believe a lot of the spread, a lot of the dispersal is due to human movement. So a little bit about the National Feral Swine Program. Back in 2014, Congress provided funding for USDA to set up a program to address feral swine. APHIS was asked to take the lead. So APHIS is the lead federal agency in a cooperative effort with federal, state, tribal, and local entities that share a common interest in reducing or eliminating problems caused by feral swine. What you'll hear me say many times is this takes a collaborative effort among many people to be successful. One of the early caveats of the program, or one of the recognitions we had early on, is that due to environmental conditions and laws that govern feral swine, in the interest of what state agencies want to do with feral swine, APHIS's strategy is to provide resources and expertise at a national level, but allows the flexibilities to manage operational activities from a local or state perspective. Most of the time, that is done through state task force, of which Wildlife Services and other federal agents will be a member of, but most often the state agencies are taking the lead. And it's a collaborative effort to decide what are the goals and objectives and how we're going to work together to move the feral swine control forward. As I said, the reason USDA got involved with feral swine, it's because we want to reduce damages with feral swine. So that is our overall objective. We want to minimize the damage inflicted by feral swine. So we're going to reduce problems in most states where they're present. That's why we're implementing activities. But in states where feral swine populations are emerging or low, the goal generally is elimination. It takes considerable resources to achieve that goal, but if we can eliminate feral swine, right now when populations are low, we can stop a lot of problems in the future, and it's much cheaper now to take them out than to let them grow into denser populations or greater numbers and then address the problem. But where feral swine populations are high, then our focus is primarily just to reduce damages. Elimination is probably not feasible at this point. So what we're hoping to do is suppress populations adequately enough that we can reduce associated damages. The program consists of several components, and it's an APHIS-wide program. Wildlife Service takes the lead. And in field operations, Wildlife Services is the primary group that addresses that. We also have a disease and population monitoring component, whereas Veterinary Service and International Service works with Wildlife Service to address those issues. On research, Wildlife Services and VS works together. Planning, evaluation, and monitoring, we work with PPD. Communication and outreach, we collaborate with the Legislative and Public Affairs Program. And then on regulatory actions, we address those along with VS. What I'm going to do is just go through a little bit of the operational components of the program and give some highlights of the successes we've had or where we're at. I'm going to touch on this briefly, but I do want to mention that Michael Marlowe is also giving a presentation where Michael is in charge of the operational component for the program. Michael's talk is called Operational Update, and he will provide many more details about how this works. But some of the early successes we've had, and again, this is in collaboration with state agencies and many other partners, but we believe we've been able to eliminate feral swine from 4 states. And there's another 6 states that, to the best of our knowledge, we've removed feral swine, but we're waiting and monitoring to make sure they don't reappear. Somebody doesn't reintroduce them, or by chance we miss some populations that need to be brought in. Those are states with low populations. In states with much higher populations, we have targeted control efforts where we have suppressed populations to where we believe we've significantly reduced damages. However, we have not in the past been able to document those damage reductions well. We are working on that. Janine Romines, working with our program, has taken a lead in developing methodologies and establishing collaborations that allow us to get a better damage. And currently we're implementing methods that will document damage reductions. Right now what we have is a lot of anecdotal evidence. Farmers are coming to us and saying, we have less damage. We appreciate what you're doing. We had a Delta farmer that had quit growing corn because every time he planted it, it was just damage. He's now telling us he's back to growing corn. Corn is a much higher value crop than some of the other crops. So just allowing him to grow corn again is a great success. And we were working in Puerto Rico, and a subsistence farmer came up and said, I can now grow a garden for my family. To me, those are huge successes. We really take pride in what we've been able to accomplish. For research perspectives, this is where there's truly lots of collaborations. Kurt Verkateren is the lead scientist with the National Wildlife Research Center that focuses on feral swine and different issues. A big part of his research, he and Nate Snows, has been development of a safe toxicant up to this point. But we have other people at the center that are collaborating. Stephanie Swift is an economist, along with Sophie McFay. They are helping develop and help us measure the damages. Keith Carlisle is developing a human dimensions program, so we have a better understanding of people's perspectives and how we can achieve our goals. Another part of it is genetics. Tony Piaggio leads the genetic aspect of the program, and Tim Smizer has been running our national archives and has done a terrific job at finding ways to start identifying where animals are being moved from. Disease surveillance. Dr. Vienna Brown has taken the lead for the program on disease surveillance, and she too has also given a talk that's going to go into much more detail than I am here. And it's called Feral Swine Disease Surveillance and Targeted Projects. She'll discuss the national surveillance. Up until now, we've been collecting about 2,800 samples a year to monitor for classical swine fever, which we have never found. Classical swine fever does not exist in the US, and we're hoping to keep it that way. But we're also looking at swine brucellosis and pseudorabies. Swine brucellosis has been in most populations, 7, 8, 10%. Pseudorabies is fairly common, around 16 to 19% of samples collected. So we've been able to monitor that over time. The other thing Vienna is doing is forming collaborations with other universities, other federal and state agencies to have a better understanding of some of the issues associated with feral swine. Some of that is, does feral swine have a role in the dispersal of CWD or anthrax? We're looking at movements between Texas and Mexico and the possible movement of disease either direction across the border. Right now, we've got some studies that are addressing feral swine at international airports to see if potential, or landfills near international airports, to see if there's potential disease risk of feral swine when they're consuming stuff there. Communication and outreach, we feel, is a very key part of our program. Janine Nesky leads that component for the program. And we have a lot of publications and informational handouts available if anybody would like some. Recently, Janine put together a series of videos that are going to start showing damages occurred in various states and the impacts these are having on landowners. We do have a website if you'd like to visit that. And I also want to invite, we're always looking for new opportunities and new collaborators on outreach activities. So if somebody has ideas or needs information, appreciate you getting a hold of either me or Janine or anybody within the program. And we're looking for opportunities to collaborate to help develop some of those ideas. Regulatory actions on that part of the program. Early on, we decided what states decide to do or how they want to govern feral swine really is a state issue. And so we're deferring to states on how feral swine should be classified. What we are doing is working with them and providing information on the problems caused in the movements or live transport of feral swine and the release of feral swine into new areas. And so we do provide information and background on what other states are doing and try to help establish collaborations along those lines. But to date, we have not participated in the development of new regulations. Federal, we're a federal agency, so planning, evaluation, and monitoring is a key component of the program. Right now, Janine Romines is, as I mentioned earlier, is developing approaches to better document damages and the successes we're having. We've also recently completed a 5-year report of the program, and if anybody's interested in taking a look at that, I believe it's available electronically. I do want to mention quickly the Farm Bill. In 2018, the most recent Farm Bill, there was money put into that to address feral swine. That was directed at both USDA's National Resource Conservation Services and APHIS. We're working jointly together. The Farm Bill was $75 million spread across 5 years, divided evenly between the programs. So our state directors and NRCS State Conservation work together to develop pilot projects. And in those projects, APHIS is directly controlling feral swine. They conduct the operational activities, and NRCS is providing services through partner agreements. Those projects are just now really starting to get on the ground. But we do anticipate having a second round of projects advertised probably this summer or early fall. I'd be happy to answer questions. This format doesn't provide an easy avenue for that, but my email address is attached here. Questions or suggestions, we're always looking for ways to improve the program. So if anybody has ideas or wants to ask for more information, please feel free to send me an email and I'll either respond or direct you to somebody that has the expertise to address your questions. Thank you.